Your childhood lasted forever. Adulthood disappears in a weekend. The clock is innocent. Something in your mind is changing. You can feel it in small, almost unsettling moments. A child waits for a birthday and the weeks seem enormous. An adult looks up from a normal Tuesday and realizes that another month has vanished. A few milestones seem to swallow everything between them. But there is a strange contradiction hiding inside this experience. A long meeting can still feel painfully slow. A frightening moment can stretch out in real time, yet an entire year can feel, in retrospect, as if it lasted only a few weeks. So what is actually speeding up? Not physical time, not the rotation of the earth, not necessarily even your moment-to-moment experience. The feeling that life is accelerating mostly appears when your mind looks backward and tries to measure a stretch of life from memory. That distinction changes the question completely. You are not asking, why did the clock move faster? You are asking, why does my memory make the distance behind me look so short? Psychologists separate these two experiences because they depend on different mental processes. The first is called prospective timing. You know that time matters while an event is happening, so part of your attention follows the passing seconds. The second is retrospective timing. The event is over and you are judging how quickly yesterday, last year, or the last decade seemed to pass. These judgments can point in opposite directions. A boring day can feel slow while you are living it because you keep noticing every minute. Later, that same day may leave almost no distinct memory, so the entire period feels strangely compressed. A vacation can feel fast while it is happening because your attention is absorbed in what you are doing. Later, it may feel long and full because it contains many separate places, conversations, surprises, and emotional changes. The lived moment and the remembered period are not using the same ruler. Research by Richard Bloch and Ronald Zakai helped establish why this matters. Knowing in advance that you must track time changes the way you estimate it. Attention becomes part of the timing process. When you watch time directly, every interruption and every glance at the clock can make it feel more present. When you judge time afterward, your mind depends much more on what was stored and what can be retrieved. This is the first piece of the answer. The feeling that life is moving faster with age is not simply a faster internal clock. It is partly a problem of memory and context. To understand why, imagine that your mind is estimating the length of a journey after it is over. It cannot replay every second. Instead, it searches for landmarks. Where did the surroundings change? What happened that was unexpected? When did one chapter end and another begin? How many moments still feel distinct from the moments around them? Your memory does not preserve a perfect film of a year. It preserves a rough map of changes. This idea appears in two related theories of retrospective time. Richard Ornstein proposed that the information stored from a period can influence how long it seems afterward. Richard Bloch and others argued that the crucial factor is not simply information, but meaningful change between one context and the next. That difference is important. A year can contain thousands of experiences and still feel empty in retrospect if most of them resemble one another. Another year can contain fewer days but feel enormous because each week had a different emotional shape. This is why childhood often feels so long when you remember it. Childhood is full of firsts: school, sleepovers, close friends, arguments, unfamiliar places, and the discovery that adults do not know everything. Each experience changes the map. The room is different. The people are different. Your body is changing. Your abilities are changing. You are learning rules that did not exist in your mind the day before. Because so much is new, childhood contains dense layers of context. When you look back, those layers provide many landmarks. A single summer can feel vast because your memory can divide it into many different worlds. Adulthood often becomes more predictable. The same route, screens, kitchen, errands, and conversations. Familiar routines are useful because they save energy. Once the brain knows the pattern, it does not rebuild the whole situation from scratch. But the same efficiency can make a period harder to distinguish in memory. Monday resembles Tuesday. One week blends into the next. A month becomes a repeated template, with only a few unusual moments breaking the surface. While that routine is happening, it may feel comfortable, busy, or even exhausting. Looking back, it can appear strangely short because the memory contains fewer boundaries separating one part from another. This does not mean that adults stop having meaningful experiences. It means that repetition can cause different experiences to be stored under the same general heading. Your brain may remember another week of work more easily than it remembers the exact shape of every Wednesday inside that week. This is also why a period of change can feel longer in memory, even when it passed quickly in the moment. Moving to a new city, starting a new job, learning a language, becoming a parent, recovering from an illness, or meeting people who change your life can create more distinct mental boundaries. The period becomes easier to divide into chapters. The years have not gained more hours, they have gained more landmarks. This explanation is powerful, but it is not complete. There is another question underneath it. Why might aging change the way the brain creates and separates those landmarks in the first place? One answer comes from event segmentation. Your experience feels continuous, but your brain does not treat it as one uninterrupted stream. It divides activity into meaningful events. You are not simply watching movement, you are recognizing that someone is entering a room, opening a door, beginning a conversation, or leaving again. Researchers such as Jeffrey Sachs have shown that event boundaries are important for understanding what is happening and for remembering it later. When the situation changes, the brain updates its model of the current event. That update is useful. It tells you that the old situation has ended and a new one has begun. The same process may help give time its texture. If a period contains many clear transitions, memory can reconstruct it as a sequence. If the transitions are weak or blurred together, the period may be remembered as one block. Recent brain research suggests how this might happen. In a 2025 communications biology study, Selma Luchtmeyer, Linda Geerligs, Karen Campbell, and their colleagues analyzed brain scans from 577 adults between 18 and 88 as they watched an 8-minute film. Older adults showed longer-lasting neural states and fewer, less distinct transitions in several regions. The broad alignment between brain changes and perceived events remained intact, so the finding was not that older adults stopped understanding what was happening. The possibility is subtler. When successive moments are less sharply differentiated, fewer of them may become distinct landmarks in memory. The authors presented this as a promising hypothesis, not a proven explanation for every year of life. That possibility fits another fact about aging. Memory does not decline in one simple way. Older adults can have rich knowledge, strong emotional memories, and a deep understanding of familiar situations. The difficulty is often more specific. The exact context of an event can become harder to preserve. Which conversation came first, what room it happened in, or whether it took place in March or May. When contextual details fade, separate events become easier to blend together. The moments remain meaningful, but fewer reliable markers show how far apart they were. There is another force that makes the years feel fast: time pressure. William Friedman, Steve Jansen, and colleagues asked 1,865 adults in the United States and the Netherlands how quickly different stretches of time felt. Age differences were small for many questions, but clearer when people judged the last 10 years. People who felt more time pressure were also more likely to say that time had passed quickly. That matters because adulthood often compresses attention between obligations. The mind is already moving toward the next task before the current one has fully ended. Later, the whole period may be remembered as one continuous push rather than a sequence of separate experiences. Busyness is not the same thing as fullness. A full calendar can create many activities while leaving very few moments that feel mentally separate. You can be doing more and remembering less of the structure between those activities. This is why make more memories is too simple. The important question is whether your life contains experiences your mind can recognize as distinct, meaningful changes in context. There is also a mathematical explanation that feels intuitive. At 5, 1 year is 20% of the life you've experienced. At 50, it is only 2%. Each new year occupies a smaller fraction of the timeline in your mind. This proportional theory may capture part of the intuition, but it cannot explain why one adult year feels long and another vanishes, or why novelty and time pressure change the result. It is one lens among several, not a complete scientific answer. The strongest explanation is not that one mechanism wins. It is that several mechanisms point in the same direction. As you age, the fraction represented by each year becomes smaller. Routine often increases. Time pressure can rise, contextual details may become harder to preserve, and recent evidence suggests that the brain may represent successive events with longer, less distinct neural states. Together, these changes can make a long period look compressed when you remember it. Now the apparent contradiction becomes easier to understand. Time can feel slow while you are inside an experience because your attention is focused on every minute. The same experience can feel short later because memory stored it as one undifferentiated block. The present is measured by attention. The past is reconstructed from change. That is the brain reset moment. The years do not necessarily feel fast because you are living more quickly. They feel fast because when you look back, your mind finds fewer boundaries dividing them into separate pieces. This also explains why novelty is not a magical way to stop time. A new experience can feel fast while it is happening, then feel long in memory because its unfamiliar places, people, and decisions create clear landmarks. The goal is not constant excitement. It is keeping some parts of life from becoming invisible through repetition. Learn something new. Take a different route. Have an unhurried conversation. Notice when a season, project, or relationship is beginning. Meaningful social experiences can become landmarks because they carry emotion, language, and change together. Reflection helps too. Naming the separate chapters of a month give memory more structure than the feeling that it all happened recently. None of this gives you control over the clock. It gives you a little influence over the map your memory creates. And that map matters because the speed of remembered time is not only a problem, it is also information. When life feels as if it is disappearing, the feeling may be telling you that too many days are sharing the same shape. When a period feels rich and spacious in memory, it often contains changes that were noticed, relationships that mattered, and moments that were allowed to become distinct. The answer is not to fear aging or to chase constant novelty. It is to understand what your mind is doing. Your childhood did not contain slower seconds. It contained more firsts. Your adulthood does not contain faster years. It often contains more repetition, more pressure, and fewer clearly separated memory landmarks. The clock is innocent, but your memories are not passive records of time. They are the way your mind decides what counted as a different moment, a different chapter, a different version of you. So, if the next year seems to disappear, do not assume that nothing happened. Ask a more useful question. What changed enough to become a landmark? Because time does not become fuller merely when more hours pass. It becomes fuller when more of those hours are recognized as meaningfully different. Your life is not only the time that passes, it is the structure your mind builds from what you notice, what you remember, and what changes you along the way. The clock is still innocent, but now you know why adulthood can disappear in a weekend, and why a life with more meaningful boundaries can feel larger when you look back. If you liked this, subscribe now for brand new videos every single week.